A high school football player, Glenn, his girlfriend Nancy, and two schoolmates have been having disturbing dreams about a badly scarred man in a hat and garish striped in a hat and garish striped sweater who's stalking, taunting, and trying to kill them with a custom-made glove that has knives in the fingers. After a ghastly murder, Nancy manages to pry the truth from her mother. Years ago, a child killer named Freddy Krueger prowled their neighborhood and was released from jail on a legal technicality. The grown-ups set his dwelling on fire, burning him alive, and concealed their act of vigilantism. Act of, being a vigilante. Of course, those same grown-ups now have no clue that the renewed nightmare on Elm Street is the vengeful ghost of Freddy, hunting and tormenting their sleeping offspring. Is it any good? Yeah, I think it's great. Part of this film's success was that writer-director Wes Craven, who also did Scream, made it at a time when bloody copies of Friday the 13th commonly filled theaters. Any teen-themed horror film that was even halfway original and imaginative would have stood out refreshingly, and this one did. A Nightmare on Elm Street's cast of teenagers was a shade more sympathetic and well-drawn than Jason's victims. The Dream Attack gimmick makes for lots of shock scenes and visual surprises, teasing viewers about what is or isn't really happening. And filmmaker Wes Craven also plants more sophisticated seeds of unease. Parenting and family life, touchstones of reassurance and protection in horror movies like Poltergeist, aren't sources of comfort here. Mothers and fathers killed Freddy Krueger and covered it up, and now the villain is punishing their children for it rather than them. The old sins of the father's biblical warning in slasher movie clothing. Now, let's look at some of the reviews on this movie. And by the way, it was available to watch on Max, but it's off now. I think they were only doing that throughout October because it was Halloween month. So, but you know me, I'm going to buy a lot of this stuff digitally, especially if it's stuff that I know I'm going to watch a lot. So all the movies that I regularly talk about, that, Halloween, Jason, Scream, even Chucky, which I'll rewatch sometimes, but not as much as the others, and any other stuff too. So reviews on this movie, I'm actually seeing some surprising reviews on this, even to today's standards. So Internet Movie Database gave it a 74%. Real Views gave it 90%. Google users gave it 86 to 87%. And Rotten Tomatoes gave it a 95%, which is beyond exceptional for Rotten Tomatoes for a horror slasher film. I don't think any of the Scream movies got that much, and I don't think any of the, I could be wrong, I don't think any of the Jason or Halloween movies got that high percentage rating for Rotten Tomatoes, but we'll check it later. Once I do the reviews of the other movies, we'll see where that goes. Now, again, that's the long synopsis of it. The short synopsis is, in Wes Craven's classic slasher film, several Midwestern teenagers fall prey to Freddy Krueger, a disfigured midnight mangler who preys on the teenagers in their dreams, which in turn kills them in reality. After investigating the phenomenon, Nancy Thompson begins to suspect that a dark secret kept by her and her friend's parents may be the key to unraveling the mystery. But can Nancy and her boyfriend Glenn solve the puzzle before it's too late? Now, here are the cast. Robert Englund, who played Freddy Krueger. You have Heather Langenkamp, who played Nancy Thompson, the protagonist. And by the way, I actually had the opportunity and the honor of meeting her in person at an Astronomicon event. That was really great. You had Johnny Depp, who played Glenn. Yeah, that's right. Johnny Depp was once in a horror slasher film. Yeah. Amanda Weiss, or Wiss, I want to say it's Weiss. She played Tina. Lynn Shay played the teacher. I didn't remember she was in that at first. She was also in Insidious. John Saxon played Donald Thompson. So, reviews on this. Now, of course, you know what I have to do. I'm just curious to go to the negative reviews and see what they have to say about this. Funniest movie of all time. This was a 1-star. Now, of course, parts of it were funny because it looked cheesy to today's standards. The movie came out in 1984. Funniest movie of all time. Couldn't control my laughter even after watching the movie. Funny film, funny characters, nonsense storyline, ending extraordinary, 10 out of 10, but you gave it a 1-star. Okay, so you gave it 1 out of 5, 20%. As far as nonsense storyline, well, you're talking about a guy who kills you, who gets you in your dream, and then you die in reality. Again, I don't know if they're referring to the idea that this movie was supposed to be realistic, but that's not what it was intended to be. It was meant to be a fantasy film. And as I've always said, just like this, I give this response to the people who criticize the latest Fast and Furious movies and other things like that, certain Scream movies. When it comes to movies like this, especially horror films and even some action films and some drama, whatever, there's always going to be something that is not 100% realistic, but most people think to themselves, who cares? It's a movie, it's there for entertainment. And when I go to the movies and when I watch a movie, I expect to be entertained. Now, some movies don't provide that entertainment aspect because some stuff is based off a true story, or at least it's completely realistic, like a Nefarious, or like, where the Crawdads sing, or they talk about Sounds of Freedom, stuff like that, or even Creed, for example. But this movie wasn't meant to be like that. It was a fantasy horror slasher film. So, of course, there was going to be some goofy material to it, and there's going to be some stuff where you look at it and it's like, that doesn't make any sense. And you just laugh at it. It's just funny. So, just like Chucky, not meant to be real, fantasy. Same thing with Megan. A campy gore film that doesn't even follow its own rules for how Freddy is able to influence events both in the dream and real worlds. No one gives a particularly polished or believable performance. Again, depending on when you watched this movie, it's going to seem a little bit unrealistic and cheesy because, again, as I've said before, when I watched the remake, Halloween from 2007, that was actually the first time I really got into slasher films. So once I watched that, I got interested in watching the originals. And I go back to 1978 and watch the original Halloween, and I thought, what is this? It's cheesy. It seems corny. I rewatched it again recently. It was a little bit scarier than what I remembered it to be. But that's just what it was at the time. What was considered good acting then versus good acting now are not the same thing. Just like money wasn't the same back then as it is now. Just like the special effects. There was only so much technology and resources that you could work with back then. So, and again, that's not to say that every movie at that time was good, because I'm sure some stuff was bad. But again, that's just the type of movie that this was. You're free to disagree. A lot of people don't like slashers in general, so they don't like any of these type of movies. It's okay. Didn't see Nightmare on Elm Street till about 30 years after its release, when I was 40 years old. Although the premise is interesting, everything else about the film is awful. The writing, acting, and directing all suck. Okay, that's an opinion. The part where Glenn's bed, Fountain's blood, is very disgusting. I saw the movie more than once. Okay, but you gave it a 1 out of 5 star. You saw it more than once. Okay? If I give something a 1 star, chances are, I might make it through it once. Sometimes I don't even finish that. I watched the first 2 Paranormal Activities and I gave up in the third one halfway. I might possibly, there's a part of me that thought like, hey, I might possibly consider giving it a chance later on, but I don't know. That's going to have to wait. Hi, I hate your show. My mom hates it. Do not make another one, please. Thank you. Well, I got news for you. They made 6 more, and then they did Freddy v. Jason, and then they did a remake. So they did 8 more. So if you don't like it, just don't watch it. That's just simple. It's just simple. And by the way, it's just no big deal. I'm not complaining. It's just a movie. If I didn't like it, then it is what it is. I probably wouldn't be talking about it. This wasn't actually that scary. People just kept saying it was. I kept laughing at this cringe movie. Bad movie, boring. Sorry about this. It just didn't fit my taste of genre. Never seen it. They said this got to be 3 letters long. Bro, I ain't even reading all of that. Okay, whatever. The movie makes no sense. Bad ending. Total garbage. Not satisfying at all. All right. Now let's get to the positive reviews. We'll look at 5 stars. What can I say really about Nightmare on Elm Street? It has been said that it is a horror classic. Freddy Krueger is iconic in the horror film world, yes. And it is an all-around great film. I have to say, I agree. Is it a perfect movie? Is it a perfect movie? Not quite. The characters are not that well developed, but actually with everything else done so well that it's a small gremlin. This film is shot in a non-cheap and atmospheric way with good ending and lighting that is never too dark or dim. The music also helps to enhance the mood about being too obvious. The script is smart, the story is compelling, but what this movie really succeeds in doing is how it incorporates its scares. It scares. There is gore, but it's not used in a cheap and excessive way, and there are some genuinely suspenseful touches. The ending is surprising and very shocking. The acting is good, and this is all about Nancy, and she is believably played. Johnny Depp went on to do better things, but he's also fine. I'll remember Nightmare on Elm Street, though, for the terrifying performance of Robert Englund. Krueger is now an iconic villain after you see how Englund interprets him, you would say justifiably so, and Wes Craven directs efficiently. Wes Craven was a great director. Rest in peace to him. Like I said, he did the Scream movies too. Overall, the first film of the series is the best and most iconic in the series. The sequels were mixed with a lot of gore and silliness and not much heart and suspense, and the remake is not worth bothering with. 10 out of 10. And by the way, I know I saw the remake, but it's been well over 10 years since I've seen it, so I'm going to check it again and give my review on that. I think I saw the budget and box office numbers. They didn't do as well. They still made some money, but greatly underperformed. But that's okay. That's just how a lot of movies do it, and especially a lot of remakes. So, now me personally, I still give this movie about at least a 9.5 out of 10. And I know that's a biased opinion because I just love horror slasher movies. So a lot of horror slasher movies to me are going to get at least a 9. So I will be covering more of, and by the way, right quick, let me check the budget box office numbers for this one. Nightmare on Elm Street, 1984. The budget on this film was $1.1 million, and the box office was $57 million. That's amazing for them. That's amazing. 57 times his budget. So, and I know that all the real horror slasher fans already saw this. And for whatever odd reason, if you're a horror film fanatic and a slasher fanatic and you did not see this movie, I don't know where you've been at this whole time, but check it out. So if you don't find it on a streaming service, I suggest rent it on YouTube. Should be only about $3, maybe $4, or Amazon, or Apple TV, or Vudu, or Redbox, or Google Play Movies, or whatever you use. I suggest checking this out because this is it is an icon in the horror realm, and it's a classic. And there's no indication that they're going to do another one, but I hope they do. There's been talk that there maybe might do a Jason movie. We've talked about that in another video, but I will be covering the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, so I'll be watching these movies one by one and giving my review on them. So if you like to watch stuff where they talk about horror films and scary movies, whatnot, feel free to like and subscribe to this channel because I will be covering more. Nightmare on Elm Street, one of the best.